Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands we're joining from today.
I'm joining from Lizaro on the lands of the Darkinjung people.
And I am joining from the lands of the Nyungbul people of the Bundjalung Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. We acknowledge their deep and ongoing connection to land, waters, language and culture, and recognise that sovereignty was never ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
So they say if you need something done now, give it to a busy woman. Sinéad Fitzgerald is that woman. She's the ultimate high-achieving multitasker. By day, she builds partnerships at Microsoft across health and the public sector, working with startups, tackling some of society's toughest challenges.
And by night, she's reshaping who gets funded in Australia and New Zealand. And as the founder of Vested Impact and the Vested Collective and the Women in Tech lead for Software Australia IA, Sinead is helping women understand their equity, step into the investing ecosystem and claim more ownership and power in tech. And we freaking love this. She joins us here today in her personal capacity to talk candidly about money, impact tech, lots of other things, but how she actually uses AI as a leader, a founder, and a single mum. And she offers practical advice for any woman who is investor curious. So excited. Welcome to Femmebot, Sinead.
Thank you. That is beautiful. And I'm going to record that and just play it for myself every day as a little rev up because I love that. That's so cool. Thank you.
So to start with, Sinead, when someone asks what you actually do in tech, how on earth do you answer that question?
Well, it is a really hard question for somebody to kind of get their head around. Like I wear so many hats, and my role in my day job at Microsoft is also multifaceted. I look after software companies who are scaling across Asia into, global regions. I deal directly with industry advisors in healthcare and government to look at policy and what they're sort of, looking at in terms of implementing tech across the industries. My day starts at sometimes stupid o'clock. It finishes again at very late sometimes because Microsoft is a global company. So it's pretty full on. I'm really super passionate about women in tech, right? And really, I say yes to everything. My default is yes, which is, is probably not good for my sleep, but it's definitely good for my soul because I just feel like we're only here for a small amount of time. And if we have the ability to give back and to highlight and promote and uplift and amplify stories and conversations and voices from people who don't have the ability to do so, then I feel certainly it's my responsibility. It's part of what I can do. And so in amongst all of the other things that I do, that's a real driver for me.
I'm like, what do you tell your grandma when you're saying what do you do for a living?
Well,
Or your
it's
mum?
really funny. So I was trying to explain this to my brother. So my brother lives in Dublin, and he's been in car sales for his whole life. And so I said, because he looks at my LinkedIn and he's thinking, gosh, what on earth do you do? It just looks like a whole load of stuff, and I don't really understand any of it. I'm like, well, imagine at Microsoft, it's like a car, and the Microsoft platform's kind of like, I'm not very good at car analogies, but it's like the chassis. Um, and what I do is we're building a Formula One car, right? And I want to get like the wheels, the best wheels. I want to get the best engine. I want to get the best oil. I want to get the best, all of these different things. And I bring them all together. And then we have this amazing Formula One car. And when I explained that to him, he was like, get it. So that's what I kind of do. I bring people together, I connect, I see the big vision, and then I help effectively. I help them sell, like these partners of mine who are software companies. I help them sell into different parts of the world to grow their footprint.
And then on top of that, you're building Vested Impact and the Vested Collective. How do they talk to each other? How do they, without blurring lines?
Yeah, it's so when I started at Microsoft 4 years ago, almost to the day, I was in a really interesting position where I was dealing very closely with early stage startups. And it was super exciting. I absolutely loved it. I thrived on that connection to, innovation. But what I realized, and it didn't take very long, is that there were very few women in senior leadership in the startups that I was dealing with. And even more so, there's very few women in the leadership of the more established organizations that I'm dealing with. I can count on one hand, really, the number of female CEOs that I'm dealing with. And, I'm not, as you might figure out by the end of this chat, I don't like to sit on the sidelines, and I don't want to be one of these, part of the problem, who just sits on the sidelines and goes, "Oh, that's really terrible." Well, I'm like, I actually need to get in and change this. So I've been
Yeah.
thinking a lot about this for a number of years. I started to do an MBA, and I did a big research paper on the role that gender plays in accessing capital for early stage startups in Australia. And the paper was to find the research gap. And lo and behold, there was a huge gap because there's one, very little research done on this, and two, there's just very little capital that goes to women founders. And then you add on the other sort of layers of diversity and intersectionality, and it just becomes even thinner, right? And so again, I'm thinking to myself, how do I change this? Like, what could I do as one human to change the narrative for somebody else? And so I started investigating different ideas on, do I do angel investing? And I already do a bit of angel investing myself. I'm not open for angel investing right now personally. I'm tapped out, but that's definitely a thing that I want to explore, and we'll talk about that as well. But I also did like a VC catalyst course with Wade Institute of Entrepreneurship, and that really just opened my mind to the possibilities of really where I could take this idea. And my idea is very much linked with my business world, which is tech, impact tech, and supporting women. And so for Vested Impact, the real ethos behind it is, how do I, instead of changing the end game, which is get more women founders, and get more women founders funded, we actually need to take a step back, I feel, and my headphones are falling off. Um, my head's too small. Like, we actually, I think, need to take a step back and look at who's investing, right? Because
And that's the root. You have the problems, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I really think it is. So I will be, going out to, and hopefully we'll get some listeners joining the initial cohort, but I want to develop a program that is not arduous, but it's not financial advice, but it is co-learning. Like, how do we learn together how to invest?
Yeah.
Because I've been super privileged. I've had the ability to work in companies like Apple and Microsoft, where I've been paid through a share scheme as well as, with cash.
Mm.
And I've learned the hard way, what happens when you sell at the wrong time. And,
Mm.
you said at the beginning, I'm a single mom. I went through a divorce, needed to sell a property, and then I wanted to buy a place for me and my kids, and I had to sell my shares. And so then I ended up with this massive tax bill, and I just didn't understand any of it. I didn't realize what was happening, and no one could really explain it either. I went to women friends, men friends, accountant, and no one really actually gave me the full understanding. So I feel like I've gone through that, and I can probably help other women who are potentially going through the same thing through this sort of learning program as well.
And I've spoken
Mm,
about it with so many women actually recently because,
mm,
I'm not a single mum. I've got a partner, but I'm definitely the breadwinner. And
mm,
it's been such a long journey for me to learn how to invest. And I speak to male friends and they learn from a really young age. So it's almost
yeah.
like kids with the internet today. It's in them kind of thing.
Mm-hmm,
They know,
mm-hmm,
they get
mm-hmm.
it. They have absorbed it from when they were born, essentially. We didn't have a lot of money. I was always just told to work hard, save your money. So I never had that attitude. It took me ages to be like, that's not how you make money. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's you're never going to get money that way or become, build wealth. You're just going
Yeah.
to be really exhausted, retire when you're 60, and go caravanning. It's like, which is fine as well, but that's what I've been taught my whole life, kind of thing. And it's taken me ages to work out and learn these kind of skills around actual investing, or even not just learning the skills, but having the confidence in myself to believe that I can invest as well. So,
Right.
it's so interesting. I mean, why do you think it is that women aren't apart from the obvious reasons why men aren't investing in women and believing in women, like there's a disparity in there?
Yeah, look, so this is where it gets a bit murky
Yeah.
because I think, and I'm super careful not to say men are not investing in women, because men are investing in women, because men predominantly are the investors, and
Yeah.
when women get invested in, there will most likely be a man involved in the process.
Yeah.
But I think, and I look at the great work that Tracy Warren from Collective has done, and all of the research that she's done, and many others as well, around the systemic issues. We look at it from who is the one who's giving the right to somebody to actually invest in something else. And in my simple kind of understanding of that is, it's the trustee, it's the bank, it's the owner of that kind of bucket of money. And that system that allows the money to transfer to somebody else, that system is broken. It wasn't built for us. It wasn't built for women.
Yeah.
It was built in the over a century ago, for women who, pardon me, for, you know, women were not working likely. They were probably didn't even have the vote at that point. And it was very much built around men. And so the expectations, even within the bank, for you to be able to get a loan, it's different. You go into the
Yeah.
bank as a woman, and they ask you, who are your dependents? How many dependents do you have? What are their ages? And we as women go, I'll fill this out because, I'm a good, dutiful woman and that's what I'm supposed to do. I was absolutely appalled to find out that men don't fill this out. Men, look, I mean, it's a big statement, but a lot of men are not asked that kind of question.
Yeah.
It's just, now
Yeah,
I
that
think
blows me
banking,
away.
regulations are changing and things like that. Hopefully that's going to change. It's the ingrained, well, I don't have dependents because my wife looks after them, or
Yeah.
they're dependent on her, not me, or whatever. And
So
look, I
I'm
I have a cynical bone in my body, so
It's even like saying, men say, like, my husband's babysitting. It's even that kind of language. He's not babysitting. They're his kids. Like, how are you out tonight? Oh, my husband's babysitting. He's not babysitting. They're his kids. But if it,
that's
it's
right.
just, it's that same kind of just cultural sort of gender bias that's just ingrained in us. I didn't realize that either, that, yeah. I mean, I think every time I've gone for a mortgage, because it's a joint
Mm.
process, it's both of us. But so you're saying if a man goes for a loan, he doesn't have that question? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
it's just this perception that society has of the role that women play and the role that men play. I mean, it's a huge societal issue. The other thing that I really was starting to look at is, I started to canvass some of my colleagues, mostly women, across the industry, not just at Microsoft, but in different companies. And I asked them, if you have shares, have you got shares? Yes, I have shares. Excellent. Do you know what to do with them? Have you ever sold any of your shares? What if you were to sell your shares? What would you do? I can tell you 80% of the time, for women who are married, their immediate answer was, don't do that. That's my husband makes those decisions. My husband makes those decisions about selling their shares.
So shares, can it be shares in, say, if you have your super and it's privately managed through a financial advisor? Like, does that count? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking more about, so for me in my world, and a lot of women who are, professional women who are working for multinational firms, or ASX listed, or very big scaled up startups that are actually offering ESOP, which is employer employee. So for me, it's restricted stock units, RSU. And so I asked some colleagues of mine, have you sold your shares? And their response is one, no, I've never sold them. So a lot of them will be walking into a massive tax bill when they do sell them. And the second is, no, I don't really know what to do. I'm just going to leave them. Or then they say the default is I need to talk
Yeah.
to my husband.
And it's just because I feel like we just don't have educate. I mean, I had shares, it's just like we just don't have enough education around
Well,
it. How do we
let's
yeah.
can we
Yeah.
get that from you now, Sinead? Like, what are the
Mm.
basics for women in that situation who have shares? It's sitting there. Perhaps they would like to take the money out. What's your sort of immediate advice?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not giving anyone financial advice. Let's be clear about that. So what I do, and I can talk from my perspective, and this I think is going to ultimately form the strategy that we have for vested impact. But when you're given shares, when you work for a company, they're generally kept into a vesting period. So say for round figures, if you're a woman in tech and you're moving into one of the big software companies, you will likely get say $100,000, right? Just for
Mm.
round numbers. That will be as a sign-on bonus, maybe, or as your first year bonus, or what have you. Now but they'll be vested on a period. So every quarter, or the different companies have different vesting periods. When they vested, that's when you get a tax event, so that you're actually taxed by the ATO as a result of the vesting point. Now, you haven't sold these shares at this point. They're just sitting, for me, they sit in the Morgan Stanley account that I have, which is essentially sitting in a US bank account. And the shares are in there. They are available for me to sell, but they're also directly impacted by how well the company's doing or how well the stock market's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember several years ago when I was at Apple, and um I had shares, and I thought, this is great. And then there was this huge dip. Like the whole industry just completely dipped. And I think I probably lost, I worked it out. It was probably about $20,000.
Wow.
How stressful.
And at the time, the guilt that I had, because I'm like, that's money that I could have had
Mm.
given to my kids, or that was money that I could have put onto the mortgage, or that is money that I could have. And so I think that there's just not enough awareness of how volatile, or maybe it's not the awareness, maybe it's more of an appreciation of the volatility of the stock market. And so I see that a lot of women in a similar walk of life to me put a lot of emphasis on the stock market shares that they have. They're very reliant on one company, or maybe there's one or two companies, but they're very reliant on that company, and they're not diversifying their portfolio essentially. So the
Mm.
risk is very high. Now they may do incredibly well, but I think a lot of people, and particularly a lot of women, consider them to be rainy day assets.
Mm.
Like, this a rainy day, I'll cash it out one day, or when I leave the company, or all of these things. But there's an opportunity to actually access those vested shares and make a decision for yourself that you're going to sell some of them and then do something different with them.
Yeah.
You can sell a portion of them. Now, you'll have a tax event, but there are different ways to make that work for you. Like, if you hold on to your shares for 12 months, your capital gains tax is lower. If you sell your shares within 12 months of them vesting, you pay higher capital gains tax. So you can decide to pause on selling them. When you do sell them, you might decide that you want to invest in like an early stage startup. So it's called ES.
Mm.
And that is a special kind of tax treatment that the Australian government has to support early stage innovation. And so you can
Wow.
actually
Yeah.
get a
Okay.
discount on that tax return, offset against your investment. So if you put 10,000, actually, I was talking to a founder recently, and she has an investor in particular who's a single mum, and she invested $10,000 into this woman's company. And she said every year she reinvests the money that she gets back from her tax discount, because it's like this perpetual sort of cycle. So she's not really out of any additional pocket every single year, but she's able to reinvest that tax saving back into this organization. And so there's just so many different ways that are available to anyone, women and men. But I think that we just don't we don't think about it because finance is scary. Finance was so scary for me. Money was
Mm,
scary. I
mm,
was like, I think I kind of I came from a very scarcity sort of background. Like my mom and my parents were divorced when I was separated when I was quite young. It was Ireland, so they were divorced when I was much older because you couldn't get divorced then.
mm.
But it was a very much a scarcity sort of growing up, like food stamps, essentially like my mum would collect coupons and she'd go in and go, hey, I've got a discount. Like it's, very, very scared of money.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
started earning. And then I started spending because I'm like, oh my God, I got all this money. This is amazing.
Mhm.
And I'm in Sydney and, and then I started saving, and
Mm.
I entered a marriage and, thought that that was all going to be rosy and it, didn't quite work out. And then I had to really understand money
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I was on my own. And I think that I talk to lots of women who maybe they're not experiencing it themselves, but they know other women who are experiencing financial abuse.
Oh
And
gosh.
Yeah.
it's so important to be able to have even a runaway fund.
Mm.
Even in the most amazing idyllic relationship that you possibly have, you never know what's going to happen. So there are so many women who can't leave, financial abuse relationships, family domestic violence relationships because they don't have a runaway fund. And that's women of all walks of life.
Yeah.
It's women who are earning, way more than I could ever earn, and they still can't leave because they don't have their finances are tied up. So I think that there's just a lot of awareness that we need to really get our heads around.
And it sounds, I mean, you've kind of answered my next question. Obviously, the lack of education, where women are generally coming at it, later in the game. We're
Mm,
disadvantaged in the respect that, just history. So
mm,
obviously there's that lack of education, and fear. I think there's a general fear of
mm.
investing because it feels complicated. What would you
And
say?
not safe as well, Yeah.
Where can we start to, I guess,
Mm.
educate ourselves first up? And then what do we need to consider to, like your friend who had 10 grand invested, like, how do we do that? Where do we
Yeah,
start?
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, come and join Vested Impact, and I'll
Yes.
take you. That
So
would be one way.
can you tell us what is vested impact and what do you offer?
Yes. So initially, I'm opening a cohort for women who are professional women who are interested in investing, who've not done it before, or who have done a little bit but have not really it's not a big thing for them. I want them to join and learn with me. And so we will learn together. I'm going to have, there's this incredible woman called Maxine Minter. She is the first solo GP general partner of a VC, which is a venture capital firm in Australia. She's incredible. And so she, and I'm putting her on the line here, but she has said, hey, you know what, if you bring these 10 women together or 15 women or 20 women, I'll come and talk to them about investing. And so my initial plan is to bring as many influenced um, experts into these conversations with women so that they can really get to grips with how to do angel investing. And angel investing is not there's different types of investing in the capacity of what I'm trying to build. There's angel, which is like, say the three of us can go and say, look, I'll give you a clear example. I went to the UNSW First Wave event recently. It's all women. They're all incredible. A lot of them have done deep, deep research into their problem statement. There could be an opportunity to be an angel, like a very, very early angel, like $1,000, $500. Somebody invested in Canva, by the way. They had somebody on their cap table from the very beginning who invested $500.
Wow.
Wow.
And you can imagine now what, I mean, it's millions. They would have, their return from that investment, it was huge. I'm not,
Can you take
mm,
it back just for people that don't know what, because I can imagine,
mm,
I'm still even a bit hazy. What is an angel investor as well?
yeah,
What's the difference between a venture capitalist, let's just say, and an angel
yes,
investor?
yes, yeah, it's a great question. And so there's an angel. Well, okay, we'll talk about what happens often with an early stage startup. I've got a great idea. Maybe I'm in university, I'm part of an accelerator or an incubator, which is a cohort of people who help you build your
Mhm.
idea out beyond a minimum viable product.
Yeah.
So I've done that. I've got a reasonable idea of what I'm trying to do. Often what will happen is men and women will go to their friends and family, and it's called the friends, family, fools round. So it's people
Mhm.
who just go, yeah, of course, darling, I will give you $500 or $1,000 or whatever it is. Then the next level up is angel. So an
Yeah.
angel investor is somebody who, comes in, doesn't expect a return, is totally aware that they will maybe never see any of that money again, but is taking a bet, is taking
Yeah.
a risk, and is really happy to be, your first check. And so angel investing can be from anything, like just somebody like the three of us could decide, we'll put in each $1,000 and we go and do some due diligence on one of these companies, say from the UNSW first wave. And we
Yeah.
say, right, we love what you're doing.
Yeah.
We're going to give you $3,000 just to get you off the ground. No strings. Just give us your bank account. We'll put it in. Right. And that's effectively angel investing. Now there's degrees of it, right? So there's a lot of high net worth individuals who could also do angel investing, and in their investment might be far greater
Mm.
than what we could put in. But effectively it's the same process and it's the same expectation. They might not expect anything back.
So they may not even, so you're not getting a shares in the company.
Angels, I would be, when I'm talking to a founder, I would be really careful about giving shares or equity to angel investors very, very early, because you don't know, right? And you might think as an angel investor, you should be going into it as, I don't expect to see any of this back.
But then
I'm going
why
to
would
do
they
this.
do it? Why would they do it? Sorry,
Yeah,
it's so new to me.
sometimes it can be seen as philanthropic.
Yeah.
Particularly if it's a large sum of money, and often a high net worth individual or a family who has a family trust, they might
Mm.
say, right, this company is building something really close to our investment thesis. It could be climate or health or,
Yeah.
or something like that. We're just going to give them a little bit, because then they also get a tax write-off.
Got it.
Because they're investing in it. But the company has to be registered to be able to, there's a lot of admin in behind all of this. Why would I invest in an angel as an angel? Because for me, I want to learn. And so what I want to do is learn about the business that this company is, turning into. I want to perhaps provide some of my expertise to the founder. you know, you might decide it might be something I met like an amazing female founder who's building I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a film review type solution. It's really cool. Movie reviews and stuff.
Amazing.
You guys might decide, hey, you know what, we want to invest in her because that's kind of your background and you
Yeah.
understand it. And you want to give her some help and support through your own network, or you're
Yes.
opening doors to her and that kind of thing. So the guidance that I would give is that you always try and invest into something that's aligned with your own values, and that you feel that you're going to be able to give more than just money, that you're actually going to be able to give ongoing support or your expertise or access to your network. And I think if those things align, then it becomes a fairly easy decision if you have the means, to then decide to do angel investing. The next level up, though, is a syndicate. And a
Mm-hmm.
syndicate is a group of angels who are a bit more experienced in investing. Generally speaking, to be a member of a syndicate, you need to pass the sophisticated investor test, or the wholesale investor test. And that is that you have a certain amount of money in assets. So it's like a couple of $1 million in assets, or for the last couple of years, you've been paid, I think the limit is $250,000 a year. So you get a letter from your accountant, and you send it off to the syndicate platform. Aussie Angels is one, GXC is another one, and you can then kind of do this diligence within a group. They'll have a syndicate lead, and they're the one who is responsible for finding other angels to come and invest. The amount is greater that goes to the startup. So you're talking, I mean, probably hundreds of thousands rather than not individual investors, but like collectively. So,
Mm.
and as a syndicate, you're when you and I'm going into more technical stuff, but like on your cap table, which is the table that you've got in your deck as a founder, and you show this to people and say, this is where I've allocated, who's allocated capital to me, and then what I've given them back as a result of that. On your cap table, when you're in a syndicate, that will just be one line and you could have 100 people, but it'll just be one line. So it makes it less messy
Mm-hmm.
than having lots of people on your cap table, because then it becomes very difficult. And then the top level is kind of venture capital, which is
Mm.
like Blackbird, Airtree, Square Peg, Giant Leap, these companies, Rampersand, and they will have a very clear investment thesis. They will have a lot of money that they need to get as part of their investment. um like they operate in a sort of VC maths, very specifically in a VC maths world, right? They have to get 10x. They have to expect to get 10x return from the
Yeah.
fund in general. They will go to thousands of, they'll speak with thousands of founders a year. They might only invest in 20 or 30. And out of that, they will expect that 80 to 90% will not return, but
Yeah.
one will be an outlier and they will return the whole fund.
Yeah.
So that's like next level. It's
Yeah.
huge. And it's a huge industry. We're still kind of fairly nascent with it in Australia. It's huge in America. The VC maths makes it difficult. That's, I think, part of what women struggle with. Women
Mm.
founders struggle with the positioning of their product, the opportunity to get quick returns.
Mm-hmm.
And often women don't build products that is going to give that type of return.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
fine.
A
Like
passion
there's nothing
place.
wrong with that. Exactly, exactly. And the other one I didn't talk about, which I am very involved in, is crowdsource funding. So that's when, like Birchall, Kirsten Hunter is amazing. Love what she's doing with them now. And Birchall is there's on market, there's Lift women, but the idea behind crowdsource funding is you really need to have a community. Like
Mm.
you have to have a community, a groundswell, and it's very aligned to B2C,
Mm.
less for B2B. So it doesn't quite fall into the tech, although it can. So they're kind of all different ways of looking at investing.
Can you kind of give us an example of, one female investor story that's really stayed with you, that you really, inspires you?
I'd love to say I can. Actually, a lot of them are very sad and not great stories. They're stories of women who've missed out on investing, and getting really good capital.
What were the learnings from those situations? I guess what went wrong?
And this has sort of formed part of the basis of why I want to do what I'm
Yeah.
doing. I'll take it out. I'll sort of extrapolate it back into bring it back into the tech world, because my um investment thesis is impact driven tech.
Mm.
So what I find is, and say healthcare example, healthcare, bio, med tech, pharma, all those types of things. What I feel is they are going to have to leave Australia at some point in order to be massively successful. And often women just don't have the ability to do that, for whatever reason. They're sandwich generation, young kids, young parents. It just doesn't seem like a viable option for me to do that. So I think that a lot of women do end up missing out on those large capital injections
Mm.
effectively, because they can't scale globally. And I have another idea for my business in the future, which will be like to actually support Australian companies, women-led businesses that want to scale globally. But that's not what today is about. But I think that I've even spoken to, there's an amazing woman who you should chat to on the podcast, called Leticia, from Understanding Zoe. And so she built an incredible application. She herself is an autistic woman. She has an autistic child, and she was just overwhelmed by all of the the appointments, the conversations, the keeping up with everything, all the admin and all of that sort of stuff. And so she designed, she's a very, very capable woman, ex-Telstra, consultant, but she designed, and her husband, this solution that just kind of pulls it all together. And it's called Understanding Zoe. And she was part of Techstars, and she did all of these great things, and she did everything that she needed to do to be supported in Australia, but she was unsuccessful in raising significant capital. And so she had to go overseas. So she's gone overseas to ask for money. And somebody in, I think it's either Hong Kong or Singapore, I'll have to be double checked on that, but they have supported her and they've given her
Oh, that's
capital.
amazing.
So good.
I'd love
Right?
to speak to I'd love to speak to her. I've been
Yeah.
speaking to Sarah Carney about sort of a similar thing that is so needed. I have
Yeah.
3 children who are on the spectrum, and I'm managing 3
Wow.
3 loads of that, and it's so overwhelming. And you can get obviously plan managers to help you, but it loses some of the nuance if they're managing it all.
Exactly.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's very stressful. So that she sounds brilliant.
She's amazing. She's incredible. That is an incredible story of an amazing
Yeah.
woman founder, but
And
who's had to push
why
against so
is
many things.
Yes, and why? I mean, especially with the
Mm.
situation of the massive strain on the NDIS, that's like a
Mhm.
solution that would, definitely help.
Yeah.
Why is Australia not investing in those
Well,
types of things?
you again going back to and I know we haven't done enough of a deep dive on like the VC mats and what they need to see in terms of a return, but it doesn't fit the mold. It's not B2B. It is tech, but it's kind of B2C. Eventually she will, probably talk to more of a health insurance type, or she'll expand it out, but it just doesn't fit the mold. And
I get it.
you know what I mean? And I just go, why? So what I want to build the in between the big VC and the angel. I want to start with angel so I can get other women to learn, and then we together will start to build something that is really that sort of that space in between the big VC and an angel, so that you can effectively not be afraid to go to ask for capital
Yeah.
and not feel like you're not going to get it, because that's unfortunately what is happening because of the statistics. The stats are terrible.
Yeah.
I was at the Fishburners launched. Fishburners are part of the Australian tech startup ecosystem. They've been running for several years and very acquainted with the team there. They're amazing. And they did a lot of self-reflection after because they've had to move from their Sydney startup hub, beloved Sydney startup hub in Wynyard, down to Tech Central, and lots of change. So they've had lots of opportunity to reflect. And what they've decided to do is go really deep on supporting women founders. And they've created this program called the Ascent program, or Ascent Project. Jella Campbell, who is the CEO of Fishburners, is amazing. And she got up there and she was impassioned about this fact that we look at these statistics and we see that less than 2% of VC funding globally goes to women-led businesses, to women founders. In Australia last year, less than 0.5% this year, Q2 of this year, went to women founders. Less than 0.5% of VC funding. Now, on the face of that, I think as a woman, as a founder, what am I going to do? Do I go and get VC funding, or will I just save myself the bother? And I think that this is part of the problem. This is why, a lot of Blackbird said that they don't see enough women founders. I think it's because, there's this fear of being laughed out of the room as a woman. I spoke with another female founder 2 days ago, and she is developing an occupational therapy app that sort of communicates between the OT and the patient, called TheraTrack. Brilliant idea, deep expertise. She's being asked, where's your male co-founder? Where's your male founder? Where's your male CTO?
That's outrageous.
Right?
What was it called?
TheraTrack.
Yeah. There's obviously women coming up with these brilliant ideas because
Brilliant idea.
women are solutions based, so it's
We are.
yeah, and it's so yeah, that it's awful that this is a thing, it's amazing what you're doing. I just wanted to, we've probably got to wrap up because I know everyone's got a hard, I feel like we could speak to you for
We need a part
ever.
2.
We definitely need a part 2.
That'd be great.
Because I'd love to, to hear what the women that you're working with, because I'd love to hear more of those stories. What they're doing is incredible. And I don't know, even just getting it out there might be someone that hears one of these women that can, be sparked and inspired and look into angel investing. But we've got to wrap it up now, but we ask every guest this, but how we talk a lot about AI in this podcast, and we just ask every guest, how are you using AI at the moment in your everyday life? Especially like you've got, if you feel like you've got eggs in every single basket possible. So it'd be great to understand what is the main way that you're using it.
Yes, I could not do what I'm doing. Like literally could not do this without using AI, like 100%. And obviously I work for Microsoft, and I use Copilot. I use Copilot so often. And I use that for my work, like my day job work, and it's connected. It's enterprise grade Copilot. It's connected to all of my enterprise documents. It's safe and it's secure. It's private. It accesses the right kind of information. Building for myself, I use a mix of various models. I use ChatGPT. I'll sometimes use Claude just because I like how it frames things. Sometimes it's a really nice way of the language of it is really nice. But what I will say is I found this amazing prompt about 6 months ago from a colleague of mine, and I'll share it with you. This was before I set up my own GPT, so I've actually done that now as well. Thank you to Jodie Geddes from Brandy, because she's incredible and she's been helping me. But I set up a prompt that created my own board of advisors. So it's just changed the game for me completely. So I have a board of advisors because obviously I'm on my own a lot. I don't have like a hey,
I've never heard that.
what do you think of this idea? So I've given it very strict guidelines. I worked through it. Like it took me a few days to actually work and iterate through this process. So I've got somebody who's marketing, a strategist, somebody who understands the Australian financial system, the tax system, overall kind of, just sort of Zen wellness, keep me in check guru. And I asked them questions, and I asked them to be different parts of that, play those personas.
So they set up as agents then? So separate agents, or?
No, it's just all done in the chat. So it's all done. I open up the chat and I say, okay, hey board, and I've developed it even further now because I've created my own GPT, and I've got a GPT which is now my board, and I've given it like my values. And so I've given it a snapshot of my own personal values, like 16 personalities test, all of that stuff. If you want to know, I'm an assertive campaigner, and ENFP, as though it would be any surprise. So, that I've given it the framework for my brand, for the business idea. I've given it, what I do, what I don't like, how I like to talk, snippets of things that, I think are really great posts that I've done, or that I've gotten really good interaction on LinkedIn, which we haven't spoken about, but I live in LinkedIn, as you also can probably tell. And so I just use it a lot, and I'll iterate back in and go, hey, I was thinking about this. Think about this in this context. Give me ideas. What I say to it very specifically is, don't say yes. Don't be
agreeable,
accommodating and agreeable. I want you to be my intellectual sparring partner. I want you to challenge me on these points. Let's discuss this. Don't just go straight to the answer, and really let's do this together. And that has just changed. It's changed the game for me. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's really helpful advice, even just for using AI every day, because I definitely find it frustrating, because it will just be like, yes, that's excellent. Woo. And then the next, but you're like, hang on, what about this? Oh, yes, excellent. And it's like, come on.
Like two people in the same room saying the opposite thing, and their GPT saying, you're amazing, being their cheerleader. But it's crazy.
Yeah. So it just brings it down to reality, and And that's the biggest piece of advice that I give a lot of women who are getting into using AI. And the other thing is you just have to start using it. Like if you're not using it, if you're not using any sort of a Copilot or a GPT, you're going to be left behind. Like
Yeah.
there's no question about it. And AI is not going to take your jobs, but someone using AI is going to take your job. And I think the biggest important thing is to just embrace it and to use it and get it to understand how you like to think. And the best way is to kind of feed in some of the things that you've written yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Nate. I feel like we needed another, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours with you just to go through everything.
Oh, I think it's brilliant what you're doing, and I think it's something now in my 40s that I am interested in, and I think there comes a time where maybe I'm a bit late to the party, but yeah, I think this is so insightful. So thank you so much for the information that you have given today, but we would love to get you back if you're keen.
I am so keen. I am there. Yeah.
And for people that want, obviously this episode will go out, and for people that do want to hunt you down,
Yes.
and get involved in these courses or gatherings, cohorts, how can they get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is up and running. It's vestedimpact.co.
Okay.
So vested
Great.
impact, all one word.
You'll see Claire and I there.
Awesome. And if you're not already following me on LinkedIn, follow me. Put a little message in the chat and what you're interested in doing, and are you an investor? And that would be really great to know. And yeah, I've created a Substack as well. So I'm going to be writing all of these things. I'll be highlighting and showcasing the women who are investing and the women who are founding great businesses as well.
Gosh, you're a superwoman.
For our listeners, we'll put all of these details of where you can find Sinead on the episode. We don't do notes yet, but it'll be on the episode, so you can find all of that. So thank you so much, Sinead, and we look forward to a part 2.
Awesome. Me too. Thank you so much for the great
Thank
questions and just the super engaging conversation. It's been amazing.
So that's it for this episode of Femmebot, the podcast powering women in tech. If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe and share.